When did your family come to Canada?
Well, my mother, whose name was Ines Mary Hope, came on in 1929, and she arrived on the Minnesota Canadian Pacific line.
Okay.
My father, just a second here, came in 1928, and he arrived in Halifax on the Megantic of the White Star Dominion line. My mother was born in 1911, and my father was born in 1908, and that made my father 19 and my mother 18 when they arrived here. They did not arrive together.
Okay. Why is it that they came to Canada?
Well, for my father, there was not too much of chance to own land or to get ahead. And in the old country at that time, only very wealthy people were able to own their own homes. He came to better himself. My mother probably came for the same reason, plus the fact that my father wanted children, when he did have them, to be able to be educated in the old country at that time, Scotland and England. Working class people were not allowed to educate, especially their daughters. My mother came from Berwickshire in Scotland, and I am Middlesex, England, which is now the part of London.
What were a couple hardships they had to face on their way here?
On their way here?
Yeah.
Very long trips. I remember vividly my mother saying it took her 14 days to cross Canada on the train from where she landed in Quebec City, and it took my father, of course, longer. It was cold. My mother was cold. My mother was always cold. She never got used to the cold. Plus, it was hard times. My father was a baker, and he was able to get work right away, but when my father made a living, it was $17 for a week's worth of work, and he was considered well paid, so there was not a lot of money, and they were cold.
Okay, so when did your family come to Canada?
Well, the first ones came ashore about 1620. That's the French side.
Okay.
Some of them came as soldiers, some of them came as settlers, just ordinary settlers. Some were merchants, whatever. I suppose the next ones to come were in sequence were some Scots-Irish. They moved here in 1836. Things were very bad in Ireland at that particular time. The country was starving to death, and there was a great number of Irish immigrants to North America. Thousands of them. And they came and settled in Ontario. Then there was the Scots from the Isle of Lewis in Scotland. They were crofters, residing mainly along the coast in a number of villages. They had been engaged in the kelp trade, but the kelp trade diminished, became virtually non-existent, and they ended up owing the owner of the Isle of Lewis, Lord Matheson, rent, which they couldn't pay. So they were given the choice of emigrating to Canada or just being put off the land and left to starve. Of course, then the choice wasn't too hard to make, so they were put on a number of ships in 1851 and sent to Canada. Their ultimate destination, for the most part, was Ontario. They settled in around Ripley in Ontario, Some in the eastern townships of Quebec, but the majority ended up in Ontario.